Last night's South Carolina primaries produced wins, losses, and runoffs. I speak exclusively with Larry Kobrovsky of the Charleston County Republican Party and Brady Quirk-Garvan of the Charleston County Democratic Party for a special edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And be sure to download the free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores, or listen to this interview later on the iHeartRadio app. Well, gentlemen, it's so good to see you.
Well, Quintin, thanks.
Yes,
It's
yes.
like a deja vu.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Glad to be here.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we've done so many times.
That's right.
And on this very spot, I think from the first time I met Brady was 4 years ago, right?
That's right.
So a
So
lot has happened since then.
You talk about what's happened. Let's talk about last night. What
Sure.
was that?
Well, for me, it was a very exciting night because it showed great passion on all sides, and people got to make choices. And I thought that, we had 5 candidates for governor, we had a big congressional primary, and people got involved. And, as party chairman, my job is not to pick sides, but to make sure everybody has access and try to generate interest. And I think on that level was passed in all cylinders. There's great involvement, and it's not over yet.
yeah, and I think the same thing for us. Exactly as Larry said, primaries are an exciting time for a party. It allows activists to get involved. It allows people to volunteer. And really gives our base of supporters a reason to turn out and get excited. So primaries are always an exciting time for our party.
And on the Democratic side, a lot of people are excited about Joe Cunningham as the Democratic nominee.
That's right. I think people were really fired up about him. He won his primary in a pretty big, margin. And I think people are really excited to put a fresh face in Congress. I mean, even on the Republican side, we saw that, there was some discontent with the status quo. And so I think what you'll see from Joe Cunningham is someone who says, I'm here to offer common sense solutions. And Katie Arrington's already said she's just going to be a rubber stamp for President Trump. And I think people on the coast really want someone who's going to focus on the 1st congressional district and, do things like oppose offshore drilling. And Katie Arrington won't take a stand on that. And so I think there's going to be some questions raised about, are her allegiances to the president or are they to the 1st congressional district?
Well, obviously, I have a much different take on that. I would voice some realism here that in the last 2 election cycles, the Democratic candidate for president and for Congress got, I think, for president got 42%. This is a Republican district. I mean, so I feel very safe that we'll retain that. I think Katie Arrington is a new dynamic force. And I disagree with Brady. I think that Cunningham's whole campaign was against Sanford, so everything he's done so far, all the money spent probably actually was a big factor for winning, because it's like double down in what the argument she was using, so it kind of helped her win in a sense, because he was getting attacked from her and Cunningham. So I think that she's a dynamic new face, and I think that if anything, it takes their issues off the table. I see her winning resoundingly, and with Cunningham, I've seen all the ads and everything, and other than like a pretty face, he's got a nice wife, and the one thing, Brady, I honestly don't understand. I mean, there are issues they talked about with Sanford of self-absorption, but speaking as a man, I can't imagine anybody who has a newborn baby. It seems the height of self-absorption to not be there. I mean, this go off, and unless you're a Superman, if you're running for Congress and holding office, I don't know how I couldn't do that. And maybe I'm from a different generation. How you could have a newborn baby,
but I want to make sure
abandoned and not be there, because
you can't say abandoned. Okay, so
not abandoned.
No,
you can't be a father.
No, I got to stop.
Okay,
so
you can't be there.
That's a
Brady.
ridiculous statement to make, and
I'm not
you know that.
familiar.
And I think 2 things are true.
Right.
One, they found out they were pregnant after he announced.
Right.
So that's point 1. Point 2 is that Joe Cunningham has been a lawyer, he has been a scientist, he has been a family man, and I just want to make sure that we're hearing history right, that the
Right.
Republican chairman is trying to intervene into someone's personal life and tell them how to live.
I'm not telling him how to
You
live.
are telling him how to live. You're saying he shouldn't run,
finding-
and that's a ridiculous thing to say. And I think it's offensive to tell someone how to live their life. Joe Cunningham is proud of his family. He's proud of his child, and he's proud of the campaign he's run. Much like Katie Arrington is proud of her family. And I think
Well, Brady,
to
I'm not
attack him
telling
on that
him
point,
he's made his own choices.
yeah, but you're attacking him for it.
Not
That's
attacking. I'm
disrespectful.
just saying that I find it incomprehensible.
And I find it disrespectful
father
that
and
you
a
would tell him
grandfather-
how to live his life.
He can do what he wants. I'm
He
saying
is.
I personally find it incomprehensible that somebody would have a newborn child in this. If you run for office, I ran for office, and you become whatever tendencies a human being has to self-absorption or self-interest, you become that in steroids.
And that may
You're
have happened
not-
to you, but he's out there trying
Maybe
to fight
he's more
for his
grounded.
family and his district.
But you can't be there and run for office. You're in Washington. I just find the choice incomprehensible. I didn't say it was incomprehensible for him, Brady. There's a difference. For me, I'm just expressing my honest,
And the-
incomprehensive at it. He's made different choices.
He
Nobody's
has.
saying that he can't make the choices. I'm just saying personally, I could not imagine having, I've been through that. I've had two
That's-
daughters and a grandparent. That's probably why I didn't run for Congress. I couldn't justify the time away.
And that's
from my
great for
family,
you,
for
but
me,
he's
but
made a
he's
choice
made
that,
different
and he's
choices.
made the point regularly that he said,
Right.
he wants to be able to look his son in the eye and say, at this pivotal point in our country's history, did I sit at home or did I get out and do something? And he's choosing to do something. And I think there's something selfless about that. And so I think the decision he's made is a great one, and we're very proud of him and his family for the decisions that they've made.
And Larry, a lot of people might be sitting here because they might jump on me and ask, "Well, wow, how we get to here?
Sure.
Family versus issues." Let's talk about the issues. What issues are Katie Arrington focusing on right now?
Well, I think that, look, if you're a Republican, we have the presidency, we have the Senate and the House, and the time now is if you ever want to get things done, if not now, when? So I think that's a very strong argument. She's a Republican conservative. She's where the Republicans are. I think that the election with her and Mark was relatively close, so people shouldn't forget that. So I think that she's a dynamic new face, and the whole thing they said about term limits or this or that, I think she brings more to the table than Cunningham. I mean, she's been a business leader. Her personal background, where she's coming from. I mean, she wasn't the child of a judge like him. I mean, she wasn't a privileged status like that. You grew up in a small community, and you're the son of the judge. You're like the highest
Sorry,
level you can
an
be.
elected official is not a status of privilege?
She served one, I think,
Okay.
term in the State House.
Just
But I'm
trying to
talking
check the
about,
privilege.
I think what, in my sense, Brady, that the formative experiences people have
Sure.
is how they're brought up.
Absolutely,
And
and
what
he's
your
had some great
circumstances are and what you've overcome. And I think she has a great biography to be had. I think she's a dynamic person. In the Year of the Woman, I'd like to say that our candidates, we have a woman for Congress, we have a new county council person, and I
I'll
think
get back
that
to that soon.
we're going to pick up a county council seat this year. We have a great dynamic in Boykin who won overwhelmingly.
Just interviewed him this
Yeah,
morning,
he's
and
a-
Honey Cat.
They're both really, she's automatically, and I don't think she has an opponent. And for him, I mean, nobody can guarantee an outcome in an election, but certainly he's a dynamic person who has real genuine roots where he lives, and I think at the very least there'll be a really hotly contested contest, and we have a strong chance to pick up another county council seat.
Sure. Well, and I'm glad, because you first asked about issues before. Larry
Sure.
keeps pivoting to personal things, which is just so odd for a Republican. But on the issues, I think one of the things that's clear is a lot of Mark Sanford's support from Republicans and independents came because he provided a check on the president. He voted with the president a lot of times, but he was there to say, I'm not going to be a rubber stamp for you. And I think what we saw is that the Republican fringe that showed up yesterday to vote
Right.
said, we want someone who is 110% Trump, that's it. And so I think to people along the coast that have voted for Democrats and Republicans, you're going to see, you have a choice. You're either going to have someone in Joe Cunningham who on the issues will tell you where he thinks, how he stands, and look at what's going to be best for the first district. And then you've got Katie Arrington who on the issues doesn't care what's best for the first district. She's just there to be a rubber stamp for the Trump administration. And I think that's going to be the dynamic that plays out on the issues.
So that seems pretty almost comical to me, because they've spent the last 6 months bashing Sanford as the embodiment of evil for all the same things, and so I think now they have to change their track. But there's a basic philosophical difference between Republicans and Democrats. I think that'll play out very well between Cunningham and Arrington. People will make their choice. Or they believe in the free market, do they believe in individual liberty, or they believe in, I think that the Democratic Party now is the party of Bernie Sanders and democratic socialism.
Why would we be the party of someone who lost our nomination 2.5 years? I mean, that's like saying you guys are the party of Marco Rubio.
Well, I think that because of, and I'd like to say it played out, and we're talking about the difference in parties and approaches. I took a very hands-off approach on the primary. Nobody knows who I'm for. I think in the Democratic side, though, they picked every Democratic elected official, and tons of money went behind two candidates who had no real, from what I could see, ties to the community.
Who I have no idea who
you're talking about your registered a deed candidate and your probate candidate, who every Democrat elected official was there, because I got the things at home pushing. Well, they looked to me like the power.
Stephanie Ganaway Paisley, who won the probate judge nomination yesterday, I got an email and a flyer from her that showed support from Councilman Teddy Pryor, from Wendell Gilliard, Robert Ford. So those are elected Democrats. So I understand you've got a narrative to pitch, but it's just false. So on our side, I also stayed out of the primary, as is my role, and I think we saw that play out, and we're very proud of all of our nominees who won yesterday.
Well, I think certainly the perception, and I'm not the Democratic chairman, but Marlon Kimpson and the rest, I mean, it was very heavily involved with Bell and with the Kelsey.
Really,
and they had, from what I could tell, I mean, I'm the Republican chairman, but I saw it as a kind of a grassroots rebellion against the party establishment of your side, and they won because certainly all the money was on the loser side, and they had the ones who won had genuine grassroots support that I thought was refreshing from my perspective.
So you're going to vote for him?
No,
that's great. I'm glad to hear you.
It was refreshing to see they rejected what I saw, the Democratic establishment and all the money put in there, because I saw that they had no. It was mind-boggling to me to watch that, Brady. I was thinking, how can that? It was kind of insulting to who the electorate was, and the electorate spoke on your side yesterday. So.
Well, yeah, and I think, as we said at the beginning, the great part is we had a primary, the Democratic voters showed up, and we're very proud of our nominees, much like you had your Republicans show up and vote. Now, I'm not insulted because, your folks rejected the establishment, Mark Sanford, who's been there since I was born. That's a ridiculous thing to say, and you keep putting in these narratives that are false, and I think what's important is that we voted for our Democratic nominees, and we're proud of them. You guys voted for your Republicans. Some of them have a nominee, some need a runoff, and you'll be proud of them. And that we can move forward on the issues instead of getting into some of sort of the petty, gossipy stuff that I think takes us away from the issues that are important.
Well, I think people can draw their own conclusions, but I think most people would agree with me that they had the Democratic establishment and the money was all behind the two candidates who didn't win. But I also think, having said that most people want somebody in the Registered Deeds office who has some experience of real estate. If you want a barber, you go to a barber. If you want somebody to register a deed, you want somebody who has a lifetime real estate. If you want somebody to be a probate judge, I think you want somebody who's a lawyer, because it's a complex legal issue. So I think those two issues speak largely for us, and I also think that the probate judge again has shown real moral leadership, because you win an election, the last thing you want to do is to alienate or rouse up your opposition. And when he took on the mayor for
it's a political fight.
I would say this, Brady, in all due respect, it shows the perfect difference between the parties, because as I perceive it, and of course you'll perceive it differently, is the axiom among democratic politics and so forth is using other people's money and claiming it's a virtue. Using somebody's money to finance your business and your personal life, in all respects, he looked like he was kind to the person, but you or I could not go if we want a loan, we got to go to the bank and show collateral. We can't use somebody else's money.
Sure,
to
and I'm not
finance our
here to
business.
litigate what John Tecklenburg did,
But it
who's
shows-
elected a nonpartisan race and had a lot of support from Republicans,
Right.
including past Republican chairman. But Quintin, it looked like you had a question.
Oh yeah, let me, Larry, there's so much going on here,
Yeah.
but let me get back. He talked about your candidates.
Sure.
I hate to go back, but
Yeah.
can you briefly describe those candidates? Patrick Bell, Michael Miller, Stephanie Ganaway Paisley, and of course Kelsey Willie, for those
Sure.
who don't know them.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're very proud of all the Democrats who ran. You know, one of the hardest things to do is put yourself out there and run for office. So we're proud of everyone who ran. And so Michael Miller has served honorably on the school board for several terms now. He's someone who understands the community, understands the needs of what Charleston County is looking at. He's been elected countywide before, and so he'll be our nominee for Register of Deeds. And we're really excited about that because that's a position where, you know, it's a largely managerial role where you're filing paperwork and things like that. And he's seen how a large operation like the school district works and will be great in that role as Register of Deeds. Stephanie Ganaway Paisley is the nominee for probate judge. She served as a magistrate judge for a number of years, and you know, we're very proud to have her on the ticket as well.
And he talked earlier about the grassroots. What is it you said? Grassroots reaction to this election.
Sure.
What's your reaction?
Yeah, I think the grassroots reaction was real. What we saw is that while Republican turnout was pretty much flat, they hit the same numbers they did in 10 and 2014. What we saw is that Democrats showed up almost 2-to-1 in what they did last time. So we saw a lot more grassroots activity. We saw people turning out who had never voted in a Democratic primary before. So we're really excited about that. Grassroots people showed up, they voted, and that's what the Democratic Party is all about.
And the money, where's the money? Let's follow the money.
Sure. So yeah, absolutely. I think both Michael Miller and Patrick Bell each raised and spent about $10,000. So you know, Larry's point was again just factually incorrect. They raised and spent the same amount. Kelsey Willie did spend a lot more money than Stephanie Ganaway Paisley, but what we know is that she ran an operation and a campaign that turned out more voters, and she becomes the nominee. So that's how primaries work in Charleston and in South Carolina, and we're proud to have them on the ballot in November.
And let's talk about South Carolina. Let's stay in Columbia
Sure.
because obviously now McMaster and John Warren are in the runoff for the Republican primary.
Yeah.
James Smith, on the other hand, on the Democratic side, is the nominee.
Yeah.
When you looked at those results last night, what was going through your mind?
Well, I think what you saw is that on the Democratic side, we are united. James won in a pretty large margin. We're ready to move forward to November. We're ready to nominate someone who served his country in the State House, on the battlefield, and is a great family man. On the Republican side, they can't figure out what ends up. You know, they're trying to decide, do they want to be, you know, Trump folks and go with McMaster and someone who's been around for, you know, again, in elected office since before I was born, or do they want to go with someone like Warren who's an unknown businessman? And I think one of the questions that we have to ask, or certainly Republicans should be asking, is for someone who's so untested, what skeletons are out there and what things might come up as he moves forward. So they're still trying to figure out what end is up, and we're really excited and united moving forward.
Well, I think if you look at the vote totals, every one of our candidates had more participation than theirs in the county primary yesterday. But also the statewide totals, the difference is astronomical between who voted in the Republican primary for governor. We had much more than theirs in the Democratic side. And I've listened to all the debates very carefully. And if you look at what Margaret Willis said, and Marguerite Willis and Phil Noble said about their candidate for governor, it's some pretty strong stuff about how he smells from smoke. I mean, all we have to do is recycle that. They had a much more bitter primary for governor than we did, so they gave us ample opportunity. And I think that in terms of there being a runoff, I think it's a good thing because it creates more interest. So I'm excited about that, and that's again what primaries are for people to hash out their ideas and see who wins. So.
And Brady, was it like a contested race as he puts it?
Yeah, I think, yeah, absolutely. It was a contested race, you know, and we were proud to have 3 people on the ballot on the Democratic side for governor. And I think what Larry and I do agree on is that primaries are good and healthy for a party. It allows activists, donors, regular voters to show up and express their opinion. So I think on both sides, a primary is a good thing, and it's good when they're contested primaries, and that's a healthy thing.
Yeah, you want to create interest, and that I think was accomplished on all levels. But I think we have lots of nice, good new faces, so I'm looking forward to, I think as a chairman, I'm pleased that, you respect everybody that runs, but the outcome, I think, are positive things. I think we have exciting candidates, and I think we should retain the county-wide seats for our registered deeds and probate, and I also think we'll pick up a county council seat.
Right. And I know that the primaries are over, but do you have any Twizzlers?
No, and that added a little bit of interest. I didn't get abducted to Planet Zoo. And the one thing I'd like to say, Brady, you can take the spaceman journey back.
We're good. We're good. Thank
I'd
you.
like to give him back.
No, not to me. He's a good guy, though.
I'm sure he is.
Yeah. Brady Quirk-Garvan and Larry Kobrovsky, thank you for this
Thank
interview.
you so much.
Care.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.